Let's extend the middle-class tax cuts right now. Let's do that right now.
Everything on the revenue side and on the spending side has to be looked at.
As we said here, this so-called fiscal cliff, it is fast approaching. This is one of these things that gets some blue ribbon committee on. They got till the end of the calendar year. And as we said, if they don't do anything, if they do a repeat of last year, it could cost the American family, the average American family, $3,500 a year. So before you blow off typical DC dysfunction, just think about that number. So the question is, how likely is it that we get a deal? And joining us now to sound off on that, Scott Levenson, Democratic political consultant, president of the Advance Group. Dominic Carter, as you know, political journalist, author. Gian-Carlo Peressutti, a former advisor to both Presidents Bush, Jr. and Sr., and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. All right, guys. The Congresswoman, she sounded optimistic. Let's certainly hope she's right. I certainly think there's enough self-interest for both parties to get a deal done. However, Scott, I think people believe, all right, well, finally they'll have some post-election bliss and they'll figure out something. There's no pretty way to make this happen. No matter what they do between the cuts and the revenue enhancements, i.e. taxes,
Correct.
tax hikes, there's going to be pain spread around here. That's the part that I don't think everybody realizes. It's like, okay, well, now with the election, they'll work out something that won't be so bad. There's going to be cuts no matter what. And I think they got to raise taxes. I don't see how they get around that, even with the deductions and even with if they want to play some fuzzy math. How do you think it's going to play out before we say how it's going to turn out?
I mean, the play is all on the other side of the field, frankly. I mean, the
Well, Monday they've agreed. The president invited Republicans to come sit and
talk. But the Republicans are facing this big Rubicon. They've been campaigning on no new taxes, and they can wrap it up in revenue enhancement and whatever language they want, but they're facing that real Rubicon where everybody who knows anything about making the deal knows that you're going to have some new taxes.
I hear you, but here's my thing. They lose the presidency, they don't get the Senate. But they have the House, and the guys there in the House say, what's in it for me?
Here is the real question.
Why now do I, why because we lost the election do I all of a sudden want to support raising taxes?
So here's the real question. It's really, yes, why I say that we're playing in the other guy's field. It's because we're watching a fight over the soul of the Republican Party, and they got to face the cameras and say, are we going to have sanity in the way we govern? Or are we going to continue the next 2 years like we did the previous two, which is
Carlo, that's the
all
perfect
that
segue to
matters
you.
is partisan
Because to
politics.
me, I know the consultants, I know the party fathers are all saying, my God, we got to widen this base here, this is crazy. But if you're some Republican congressman from Alabama or South Carolina, why do you wake up Wednesday morning and say, all right, got our rear ends kicked here. Let's go to the table and raise taxes.
Here's why. Because your leadership in Congress just became more powerful and more emboldened. 10 out of the 12 GOP incumbents to lose on Tuesday were Tea Party freshmen. We said Tuesday night it was the Tea Party freshmen predominantly that were holding House leadership's feet to the fire. They're no longer a factor. John Boehner wants to cut a deal. He knows he has to cut a deal. And what was holding him back in the last Congress is no longer there to hold him back anymore.
So, and we'll go around the table. I'm going to start with you. What do you think the deal looks like at the end of the day?
I think we know what the deal looks like. And there's an irony here, because what the deal looks like is the tax plan that Mitt Romney campaigned on during this presidential election.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Here's what's going to happen.
Here's what's
going to happen. We're going to raise revenues, not by raising rates. That is off the table. John Boehner said it. I don't believe it's going to happen. I don't believe rates are going to go up a point.
But I also heard him say that it's for discussion. How do they keep 35 for the top end?
We are going to means test deductions. Mitt Romney said, we will put some limit, some number of deductions you can choose. It is going to be some form. It's going to be some form of that, because that is a way.
But the math still doesn't add up to where we got to get to. This is, see, for the first time,
we don't know
we got
where
to
we
target. Well, we kind of do. I mean, Andrew, we know we got to hit a number here, and either there's going to be cuts, and we'll talk about the cuts in a second. You guys think at the end of the day, 35? I mean, in effect, the Bush tax cuts hold. I don't see that. You think so?
What number do we have to hit?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we got to have. Well, I don't know what the total number is, to be fair to you, because I've heard two different numbers here, honestly, today. I heard, if you heard what the CBO said, I mean, they're laying out that we got to hit certain bogeys, but to be fair to you guys, but I don't think for a second that they can stay at 35. Do you? For the top end tax rate?
I don't know what the exact numbers will be. All I can tell you is 100% there will be a deal. I'm predicting 100%.
But my question is, Brother Dominic, what does the deal look like?
The deal looks like there's going to be revenue tax increases, as the speaker has already indicated. He's realized, and I couldn't have said it better than what you already said.
I got dinner on the rates. I got dinner that there will be a higher bracket
37.
rate. And I will argue that if I'm on the Republican side, what
also
I'd be
spending cuts.
what I'd be fighting over is sunsetting those rates.
Look, let me make one other point. So do you mean to tell me that if the deal that comes out of here says every single American or family making over $250,000 a year in income loses every single tax deduction?
No, here's what I think
that
happens. I'll tell you what I think
not
happens.
going to
No,
be seen
I
as
think-
a lot of pain?
I think the Republicans will get what the president wants to give anyway, which says 250 is no longer the top end. I think they're going to make it either 500 grand or $1 million. That's going to they'll do some exemption here for small businesses. Okay, they're going to say, Boehner, here, you go back and say that you fought like a dog and you got it to raise to this and that. Now, I think they'll also say, we'll do those deductions you guys are talking about. We all know at the end of the day they're not going to add up to a lot. But okay, we'll do the deductions. And he'll lower corporate income tax rates. I think he'll bring it 20, 18, 15%.
So he'll raise the individual rates but lower the corporate rate?
Because corporate income tax rates aren't bringing in, as long as, I think the argument would be if you do that, you bring more money in domestically. Now, I know I got a break, but if these two guys can get the people, and I know the left's going to be a pain in the you-know-what here for the president as it is, but I think if they can say, all right, now's the time, let's throw some other stuff in here. You Republicans, I'll give you the biggest gift I'll ever give you. Let's do immigration reform here. I don't know if they can cram it in time, but to me, that's the best thing they could ever do.
The Republicans should grab something like immigration reform, make it their own, do it now, so we don't have two victories for the Democrats.
Do it now before the deadline?
Get it all done as
that's
part of the
not.
package.
There's no chance, zero chance of that happening.
listen,
They're gonna cut a
step on their
deal.
own victory.
They're gonna cut on deal on
I
this,
think
and that's
Richard's right.
that.
Strategically,
if
Richard's
you
right.
throw corporate tax rates into the mix and you play with the individual rates, all of a sudden you have what Republicans have been calling for years, which is comprehensive tax reform in this
They
country.
never called for income tax rate
No, they called for reform. I'm not saying that. I'm saying reform. So you
No.
just essentially have backed into
Your reform is my progressive tax plan.
wholesale tax reform.
Your
If we're going
reform
to
is
do
my
that, we'll
progressive
do it.
tax reform.
Wait, all the things that we're talking about, it sounds like they're trying to fix every single problem that's on the table all at once. I don't think that's where we're going with all this. The first thing that has to happen is they got to stop the panic, but they got to hit the panic button and stop the cliff from happening, which means you can't have all of the cuts expire, you can't have all of the defense cuts, you can't have all the tax increases go into place. But you can stop some of them in piecemeal, which is enough to stem the tide past December 31st,
Where I'm disagreeing
which is probably all
politically-
we're going to get.
No, but you're 100% right. But this is where I park company. Before the next Congress comes in, and while the wounds are still fresh here, this is the time where Boehner and the president can make a deal happen that they don't have to go through
How does John Boehner cut defense spending? I don't think there's any way that he can agree to that and still keep his position viable. How does President Obama or how does a key Democrat live with either cuts to Medicare or cuts to Social Security or
Because I think down deep-
getting rid of something like the mortgage exemption?
No,
or
our
mortgage-
presidential standard bearer said on the stump he was willing to cut
Yeah.
defense
But-
spending. That hurdle's already been
but the
cleared.
But the Republican,
I agree with you.
I'm not sure the Republicans in Congress can
defense
go there.
cuts is ideal for the Republican isolationist libertarian base that doesn't want to continue to grow that anyway.
But your standard bearer said he wanted to increase defense spending by $2 billion.
Andrew, I think it depends how it's positioned. And I think for the president knows that he can't leave Medicare as is. He knows Medicaid and Social Security. The president right now, he'd never admit this publicly, he'd raise the retirement age. He'd means test Social Security. He'd do
The
that.
problem is the 2014 cycle is going to be a bad one, at least in theory, for Democrats, both on the Senate, in particular on the Senate side, but also on the congressional
The
side.
president doesn't care. He
But
wants
he
to get
needs
this done.
Democratic votes to get it home in Congress.
I still think it's a win for the president. He'll be looking presidentially if he gets a deal done. I only say I don't know if they can get it done, but this 30 days, if they can put together some omnibus thing here, I think it's the best thing for not only the president, but the best thing for Boehner. I mean, they're not going to get this kind of window again. We all know how it works. You get the first 12 to 15 months of the presidency, you get the last end. The middle's a lame duck. And that's going to be the way it's going to work.
Richard, if you leave rates alone and you play around
They're not
with
gonna.
deductions, the president gets to stand at the podium and say, we have effectively raised taxes on people earning over $250,000 by
no
X
way.
amount, and John Boehner gets to say, I told you I was going to leave rates alone, and I did it.
He's got a dinner. I'll buy you two.
Wow.
If Obama walks away without raising 1 percentage point of the rates here, then you got to lead, because then all the worst that they always said about him, that he didn't have the spine for a fight, it just confirms it. He's got to raise them a little bit, even if it's 2 points. All right, we got to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to bring you an update on the power outage situation. Just as the lights were coming back on after Sandy, at least for parts of our region, you got another storm coming through, the nor'easter, and it screwed things up for a whole lot more folks. And it has a lot of people fairly asking, what the heck are some of these utilities doing right now, 12 days after the storm? And this, we'll be right back with that after this break.